Welcome to the afternoon briefing for the Saddleridge Fire. The speakers, we have a number of speakers that are going to be speaking today. These speakers will be introducing themselves as they come up on the stage. We will have a question and answer session immediately following. We will have Spanish language available as well. We also have other representatives that will be available for stand-up one-on-one interviews at the conclusion of the briefing. Our first speaker is Councilwoman from the 7th District, Monica Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to recap, last night at approximately 9 p.m. at the intersection of Yarnell and the 210 Freeway is when we first had the Saddleridge Fire erupt, and from there jumped to a number of different locations. This fire currently has extended to 4,700 acres consumed. We've had more than 100,000 individuals that have been affected through these evacuation efforts, and we are continuing to monitor this very dynamic situation on this wind-driven fire. I want to thank the public for its cooperation in heeding the evacuation calls. At this time in the community of Sylmar, Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park remains at mandatory evacuation efforts, and many other areas, of course, heading north of the 118 freeway and Rinaldi, heading west of the 405 freeway, also remain under evacuation orders. And we want to continue to seek the public's cooperation in assuring that you are cooperating with these mandatory evacuation calls. We also want to let you know that our animal services for many of our foothill communities that have large animal and equestrian communities, that we have arranged for the evacuation assistance at our, if you call the East Valley Animal Shelter or the West Valley Animal Shelters, you will have the opportunity to seek additional trailer support to help evacuate your large animal or your horses. We appreciate our animal services for helping to make available the Hanson Dam Equestrian Center, which still has significant capacity, more than 200 stalls available. We also still have Castaic and Pierce College that is available for these evacuation efforts as well for these large animal and equine. As far as our evacuation shelters, our emergency shelters, and at our city facility, our rec centers. Through the Emergency Management Department, we have continued to make available and activate these emergency shelters to accommodate evacuees in many of these areas. The Northridge Park facility is at capacity. Our Sylmar Recreation Center remains at capacity. We also have the Granada Hills Rec Center also full and unable to accept more residents. And so Mason Park remains available, and we have new facilities that are now activated and available to accommodate residents for both shelter or just temporary evacuation stays. And that is at the Van Nuys Recreation Center, Balboa Recreation Center. These are both new and available to accommodate over several hundred individuals to accommodate their shelter needs. So again, we want to thank the American Red Cross for their assistance, and of course, we would be remiss if we didn't thank our first responders who are out there tirelessly helping to attack this fire from the ground and from the air. They're doing an outstanding job. I want to thank all of my colleagues and elected officials that have joined us in offering their support in this effort. These fires are transcending jurisdictional boundaries, but that hasn't stopped us all working cooperatively to assure that we are protecting our residents and protecting the needs of their property, and we will continue to do so. Again, we want to encourage the public to stay apprised of more current notifications for evacuation efforts, and through Notify LA, which is our early notification response system, we want to encourage everybody to text the word READY to 888-777. That will provide you any additional notification efforts of evacuations in your area, so we want to encourage the public to also assist us in making sure you're getting the most recent and current information as it relates to this ever-changing fire. But again, my thanks to the community for its cooperation in heeding the calls for evacuation efforts. Again, these mandatory evacuation areas are going to remain in effect, and until they're lifted, residents will not be allowed back in these areas. Because of the wind-driven conditions, we cannot, it's indiscriminate, and we want to make sure that we protect the public, we want to protect our first responders, and we want to continue to be able to protect your property. So with that, thank you very much, and at this time I'd like to invite my colleague from the 12th District, Mr. John Lee.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. John Lee, council member of the 12th District. First, I want to always thank the men and women from all the different agencies, even some from out of state, that are coming together to fight this fire with us. I want to remind everybody that Council District 12 district office remains open, and if you have any questions, our phone number is 818-882-1212. The biggest question we're getting right now is, because they don't see any smoke in the Porter Ranch area, if it's okay to return to their homes. There are many other issues just because there aren't smoke that may endanger down power lines and other situations. And so understand that until we give the all clear, that it's still not safe to proceed into these different neighborhoods. I just, as a board member of the San Fernando Valley Rescue Mission, just got notification from our executive director that for women in special needs or women who are pregnant, we do have a limited amount of space at the rescue mission, and that each case will be taken on a case-by-case basis. So if you fall in those categories, you can reach out to 818-785-4476, and each case, like I said earlier, will be evaluated individually. And now I'd like to introduce Supervisor from the LA County, Supervisor Catherine Barton.
Thank you. I'm just going to touch base on what's going on in the county. And for those of you that don't know, Barry Nydorf Juvenile Hall is located in Sylmar. We've evacuated 276 minors who have been moved to Los Padrinos, and it was done out of caution. There is smoke currently damaged there, but other than that, it's fine, but they just wanted to move those youth. It's also important that all of you medical center is evacuating. That is not true. It is shelter in place right now. Patients are safe. Staff are being held over. We are having difficulty getting staff in there because of the 3-day weekend and also because of the closure of the 5 freeway. But we remain in full force at all of you medical center. And if that changes, you can go to fire.lacounty.gov to get an update moving forward. But at this point, the only evacuation we've had for one of our probation facilities is Barry Nydorf in Sylmar. The adjacent to Olive Medical Center, there is an urgent care center for mental health. All those patients were evacuated up to the hospital. It is still, again, intact. It has not been affected by the fire, but an abundance of caution, they decided to move the patients that were currently there to the main hospital. So that is it for LA County, but again, you can go to our web page. We are updating it in real time in order to make sure that people have information they need. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Congressmember Sherman to give an update. And I'd also like to say that I've talked to Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was Senator Henry Stern and I, State Senator Henry Stern and I talked to her. She has offered all resources necessary and has been very, very helpful in establishing a relationship so we can, at the end of this fire, make sure that we are fully covered, both federal and state. And so I'd like to publicly thank Senator Feinstein for reaching out. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. At 12:19 last night, I noticed that our home was in the mandatory evacuation area and left our community of Renaissance in Porter Ranch. I want to thank firefighters. They are there on the front lines, and they have saved so many homes already and are continuing to do so. October has not been a good month for northern Porter Ranch. 11 years ago, we had the Cessnon fire in October. 4 years ago, we had the world's largest methane blowout. And now this October, this Saddleback fire. I want to thank FEMA for authorizing firefighting grants so that 75% of the costs of fighting this fire should be borne by the federal government. And I want to thank the colleagues I had in Congress a decade or so ago in helping me secure Super Scooper firefighting planes for firefighting efforts here in Southern California. A bit of practical information. Like others who have homes in the area, mandatory means mandatory. If you're instructed to leave, please leave. Second, if you have costs associated with leaving and you have homeowners insurance, keep your receipts. Many homeowners insurance policies will cover the cost of lodging, transportation, and meals. And we'll have to see whether we're successful in getting a federal disaster declaration. I will certainly be fighting for it, as will my colleague who will speak in a second. Whether that will be granted will depend on a number of circumstances. If we and will be determined in part on how big this disaster turns out to be. Will also be determined by whether this is viewed as part of the same disaster as the wind-whipped fires in Riverside County that are affecting so many right now. So if we do get that declaration, that will provide additional federal help to businesses and homeowners. With that, I want to introduce Katie Hill, who in just a few months in Congress has been a strong advocate for firefighting grants.
Thank you so much. My message is simple. I just want to thank all of our firefighters and law enforcement professionals who are out there. We have over 1,000 firefighters all across the region who have come together to battle this and protect all of us. We have hundreds of law enforcement professionals, all of which you're going to hear from about those operations shortly. But we're thinking about you. Porter Ranch has been through so many different disasters, and this is the time for us to come together as a community. Santa Clarita, Simi Valley, be ready. This could change at any moment, and we need to make sure that people are prepared, that we are not caught flat-footed if the fire changes in directions. We also, you're not going to have a police officer knock at every single door if mandatory evacuations change. So make sure that you are signing up for those alerts that my colleagues have mentioned earlier. Make sure that you are following online, following on Twitter, watching the news, and have AM radio available, because if cell networks go down, then that is the last line of defense. So we're here for you. Our office will continue to put forward information as we learn it. Thank you so much to all of you who are working on the front lines. We really appreciate it. And with that, I want to introduce my colleague, Assemblywoman Luz Rivas.
Good afternoon. My name is Luz Rivas. I'm the Assemblywoman for the 39th District, which includes Sylmar and parts of Granada Hills that have been affected by this fire. I'm joined here with other members of the state legislature, Senator Hertzberg and Senator Henry Stern, that also represent this area. As soon as the fire started, I immediately reached out to the governor's office. I'd like to thank Governor Newsom for his immediate response and for sending several state agencies to this area. At 2 a.m. this morning, the governor sent the State Office of Emergency Services and deployed department heads from CHP and Caltrans to immediately help with this fire. I'd also like to thank the great work being done by the City and County of LA, and for those who are putting their lives on the line to protect our community, like LAFD, LA County Fire, and LAPD. My office will be coordinating with several state entities to ensure that there are no unmet needs, including the Department of Insurance, to help families and businesses that have lost their properties in the fire. I will also be ensuring that the Governor's Office of Economic Development will be available to help provide financial assistance for those who need it. I will also be coordinating with my colleagues in the state legislature, like Assemblymember Christy Smith, Majority Leader Hertzberg, and Senator Stern, to participate in conversations with state agencies responsible for providing assistance. I'd like to also establish a relief fund where folks can contribute to help those being impacted by the fires this evening. So I would be providing these resources on my Assembly website. I'm proud of Sylmar and Granada Hills, and I'm proud to be Sylmar and Granada Hills strong in this fire. Now I'd like to make brief comments in Spanish. Buenas tardes, soy Luz Rivas, yo represento a esta área en la Asamblea del Estado. Aquí estoy con el senador Hertzberg y el senador Stern, que también representan estas áreas afectadas por los incendios. Ayer aproximadamente a las 9 de la noche, un agresivo incendio forestal estalló en Sylmar. Evacuaciones obligatorias han sido ordenadas. En cuanto comenzó el incendio, inmediatamente me comuniqué con el gobernador Newsom y le quiero dar las gracias a él por mandar a las agencias del Estado como CHP, OES y Caltrans para que inmediatamente ayuden a esta área y que apoyen a la policía, a los bomberos y a otros que están trabajando para parar este incendio. Le quiero dar las gracias a la ciudad y al condado de Los Ángeles por todo lo que están haciendo por esta área y por las familias afectadas. Yo y mis colegas del estado vamos a asegurar que todas las familias tengan acceso a aseguranza si están perdiendo sus viviendas, a los negocios pequeños si necesitan ayuda del gobierno del estado, y también nuestro gobernador ha hablado al gobierno federal para pedir fondos para ayudar a estas áreas afectadas después que apaguemos estos incendios. Quiero que se mantengan informados por la televisión, el radio, si tienen un radio AM es el mejor, o por la media como social, como Twitter, Facebook y otros medios, que hay mucha información. Pero si usted vive en estas áreas, por favor, vaya a otra parte y deje que los bomberos y la policía le ayude. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Al Poyer. I'm the Chief Deputy of Emergency Operations for the Los Angeles Fire Department. I speak here today on behalf of Mayor Eric Garcetti, Fire Chief Ralph Terrazas. As was mentioned, we responded to a brush fire near Yarnell in the 210 freeway last night that we found to be about 1 acre. But after the well-publicized adverse weather conditions that we were facing, the fire quickly evolved into a wind-driven fire that was quickly pushed across Sylmar and into Granada Hills, across the 5 freeway, up into the 514 corridor, and into the northernmost reaches of Porter Ranch and on the western end of that portion of the San Fernando Valley. We mounted an all-out effort that was included 500 firefighters from your Los Angeles Fire Department and an additional 500 firefighters from our closest partners in the Los Angeles County Fire Department, CAL FIRE, in the Angeles National Forest, and many other surrounding jurisdictions who lended firefighters to the mutual aid effort. We currently are working with hand crews and dozers and aircraft and engines to try and suppress and contain the fire. And I want to thank the media and the public and for your publicizing the need to evacuate, and they heeded our warnings and they heeded our guidance and evacuated when they were told to, and allowed firefighters and our partners from the Los Angeles Police Department, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and the California Highway Patrol, and allowed us to safely evacuate and protect the property and the homes and the belongings of those people who were affected by this fire. And I'd like to turn it over to my counterpart from the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Chief Deputy Dave Richardson.
Good afternoon. Dave Richardson, as mentioned, Chief Deputy of Emergency Operations for the County of Los Angeles Fire Department. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our folks behind me, Councilmember Rodriguez, Lee, Supervisor Barger, and our elected officials for their unwavering support and our effort to make a difference in the communities that we serve. On behalf of my Fire Chief, Darrell Osby, and the men and women, we are proud to be out here to make that difference. As mentioned by Chief Poyer earlier this morning, resources responded out to try to contain this fire. This is a true unified effort. County of Los Angeles, City of Los Angeles, fire departments, Los Angeles Police Department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, as well as the California Highway Patrol, as we work together. And as we have this concerted effort, we develop a number of priorities to make a difference and to combat this fire. First and foremost, the protection of life and property. As Chief Poyer mentioned, the fact that the community members heeded the warnings for evacuation early made a huge difference in allowing firefighters to enter those communities and protect their properties. Secondly, one of our goals always is to limit fire growth. There's a strategic plan put together, as you can imagine, with the devastating winds last night, in trying to really provide a containment box, if you will, around the fire. It's very challenging. Fortunately, Mother Nature has somewhat cooperated. Even though the wind's blowing, we're able to get fixed-wing aircraft. Our Los Angeles County Fire Department super scoopers out there within the communities, as well as our large air tankers that are dropping retardant out on the fire line, again, to try to box this fire in and make a difference and put it to an end. And lastly, one thing we always have in mind as we near towards the end, where it's a safe at one point or another to repopulate. I want our communities to know that repopulation is at the forefront of our minds. And when it is safe to do so, we'll work with our law enforcement partners to make sure that we get folks back to their homes in a timely manner. With that, I thank you. Thank you for getting the message out to those communities that have been impacted by this disastrous fire. With that, I'd like to ask LAPD Commander Jeff Burt come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Commander Jeff Burt of the Los Angeles Police Department, speaking on behalf of Chief Michael Moore. I wanted to also echo my friend's comments up here, thanking state, local, and county officials for their absolute support from this for this fire, and also want to echo my thank you for our partners in city and county fire, Department of Transportation, animal regulations, and recreation and parks. The Los Angeles Police Department in the city of Los Angeles are responsible essentially for safe evacuations, assisting with evacuations, the traffic control of those areas, and then security in the evacuated areas. We've been doing that diligently with input and advice from the Los Angeles Fire Department and our peers up here. And I thank them, but I more than anything want to thank the communities. I can only imagine that being in a fire zone is terrifying. It's scary for me, and to have somebody knock on your door in the middle of the night and tell you you're being mandatorily evacuated, I completely empathize. And thank you for following our directions, having patience and courage, and working with everyone in the community to make this a safe event. Excuse me.
Hi, Tim Murakami, Undersheriff, LA County. On behalf of Sheriff Villanueva, I want to extend my condolences and our condolences to the life lost in Calamasa and the one life lost associated with this fire. One thing I got to tell you with total confidence, we're in a briefing with LA County Fire. I have total confidence in their knowledge and their abilities. For lack of a better description, this is a full-on war, and they have a battle plan, and we're going to assist them in implementing that battle plan. Like LAPD said, our role is basically to secure the area, evacuations, and traffic control. But one thing I urge people is that to be ready to go if you have your documents ready, your medications, and be ready to flee if possible. But also do not wait till the last second, because what happens is that there's been times where, because of the smoke, your car will not start. You'll be trapped. Also, if you choose to disobey the direction to evacuate, it is not a personal decision. you're putting first responders at risk. Even though we admonish you saying we will not rescue you, chances are we're going to. We do not leave people behind. So you elect to stay behind, a firefighter or a police officer or sheriff is going to come get you. And I don't want to tell family that I lost a deputy because you stayed behind. So please obey the directions of to evacuate if necessary. But thank you. And I'd like to introduce Captain Ford from the California Highway Patrol.
I'm Captain Dennis Ford with the California Highway Patrol West Valley area. From the onset of this fire, we've been working very hard with our law enforcement partners and fire service partners to help mitigate this disaster that's been going on since yesterday. I have a very short list of the current freeway closures in the area. Eastbound and westbound I-210 from SR 118 to I-5. I-5 from Cal Grove and Santa Clarita to SR 118, and that includes the truck routes. SR 14 from Newhall Avenue to I-5. We're constantly evaluating whether or not we're going to be opening up any sections of the freeway. We closed down SR 118 through the San Fernando Valley earlier today, and we did open it up a few hours later. These kinds of things can be very fluid, so be patient with us as we reevaluate the freeway closures constantly, and we will get them open just as soon as we can with our partners from Caltrans and with the fire departments and the other police departments working here on the fire. Thank you.
Hi, Sergeant Rudy Perez with the Los Angeles School Police Department. Unfortunately today, this is the power of unification. We come together and we help each other. Today about 40 schools were affected, and we had to close 40 schools in the area because of air quality. Number one importance to the LA schools are the safety and health of our students and staff. The superintendent was very adamant to make sure that the safety of our staff and students was the number one priority. With that, there was other closures throughout the day. At around 12:30 today, all schools in the San Fernando Valley were closed because of poor air quality. Today, we also are canceling any after-school activities and any football games tonight that will affect, and we will reschedule those to happen. Once again, the concern is the safety and staff of all of our students and community members. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our representatives for that information. We will now open it up for questions. Please keep in mind that they will all be available for one-on-one interviews at the conclusion of the briefing.
Just a clarification, the acreage, because I've seen reported 7,500 acres. We're also hearing 4,700 acres. Where do we sit on the size?
We're looking at 7,500 acres now.
7,500
Yes.
acres. That's the correct. Okay.
Can you go over again what areas are being affected by this fire right now? What areas are being threatened?
So fortunately, in most of the areas in the Porter Ranch area, from what we're hearing, a lot of the fire activity has died down. We do have numerous crews in that area that are still actively involved in mopping up all the hot spots and protecting structures, protecting against flare-ups. We do have some more active flame toward the northern edge of the fire, working into the LA County area. But it's not threatening any structures at this time up in that area.
How many total evacuations?
We're looking at an estimated 100,000 people affected by the evacuations.
Is there any likelihood that this could move toward the Canyon and SoCal gas facility and the rest of that?
As of our last report, the Aliso Canyon facility was not threatened by any fire. There was some activity around the area, but they have very good clearance and there weren't any threats to the structures. We don't have any information right now to clarify. Containment's at 13%.
So for the communities south of the 118 and at the Ventura County line, what would you like the federal?
We'd still like them to be very diligent about watching the local media and vigilant about paying attention to all the facts that are going on as the fire is still burning in that area. We want them to be ready to evacuate if necessary. If they feel threatened at any point, voluntary evacuations are their call. They definitely could leave the area and come back when they feel it's safe, but there are no mandatory evacuations in those areas.
The direction right now is north.
Correct. The most fire activity is in the northern edge from what we're hearing from all of our troops on the ground.
Is that fuel driven, spray driven, or is that wind driven at that point?
The ones on the northern end, it's more of a backing fire because the winds are coming out of the north. So the fire is just slowly creeping towards the north, but it is not being pushed by winds to the northerly direction. We don't have a number other than our original estimate this morning, around 25, but that number can change because the damage assessment teams are in the area doing a thorough damage assessment. We don't have the exact locations right now, but there was severe impact in the northwest end of the valley.
Conversely, any idea on how many you saved?
We don't have any numbers on that, but quite a few more than lost, of course. Yeah, like thousands. What was that? I'm sorry. No, it's under investigation.
What competition for people and equipment are you starting to notice as this fire gets longer and there's more fires elsewhere?
I haven't heard of any competition directly for our resources at this time. Any other questions directly for any of our representatives that are on stage? Otherwise, we can move on to one-on-one interviews.
Yeah, I've got one question. Sir? Yeah.
About
Hers first.
evacuations.
Okay. Excuse me.
We can address the confusion among some residents as to where to go when the locations of evacuation centers. We're hearing there was confusion.
Would you like to speak to that?
The best way to stay apprised of our mandatory evacuation efforts is, again, we encourage residents to register for Notify LA to get those evacuation alerts specific to their area. We have tracked on social media via Nextdoor and several other communications people misrepresenting the evacuation areas. We would encourage the public to please, again, register for Notify LA, text READY to 888-777, but also you can follow lafd.org for additional updates on evacuation efforts, and I would say that that would be the most efficient way of tracking where the evacuations are headed.
What's the expectation with the winds this afternoon and tonight as it relates to the firefighting?
Would you like to address that?
Yes. Who knows? I mean, we get one prediction, right? We get predictions from the Weather Service. The majority of the time they're spot on, where the winds are expected to increase, right? I mean, we can just feel it here. We get wind gusts. You can feel it the back of behind you. I just want to get one message across. It appears there's a lull in activity there, but don't be fooled. There's a lot of open fire line. There's a lot of potential for continued growth of this fire. To answer the question regarding the other side of the 118, Ventura County is still a potential threat if the fire gets up and continues to progress in that direction. It's going to be a number of days. As mentioned by Captain Silverman, the fact that there is a lot of tough topography out there. A lot of our fire right now is topography with a little wind behind it, driven, and heavy vegetation in a number of areas on this fire. So it's not like your light grass fuels. It takes a lot more boots on the ground to be able to work those types of fuels out and make sure the fire is out. Thank you.
Are those areas burned recently, or are they thick with vegetation?
There are certain areas, as mentioned by Captain Silverman, basically adjacent would be west of the 514 interchange. It's the Michael Antonovich Open Preserve. That I believe was missed during the 2003 Simi fire, as well as the prior Cessnon fire that burned years ago. So there's a number of pockets of old growth vegetation that exist within this current fire's footprint or has the possibility to reach.
Your home in Porter Ranch was also evacuated?
Oh yes, our whole neighborhood, the whole area.
Were you home at the time? Can you tell us any more?
I was watching the news. I then looked at my iPad, and they had evacuated as far west as Tampa, and I was about to go to sleep, and then I looked at my iPad again, and it said they were evacuating as far west as DeSoto. I got in my car.
Do you know the status of your home right now?
What?
Do you know what's the status of your home?
It hasn't burned down, but that area is subject to mandatory evacuation, and I am counting, as so many of us are, on the valiant work of the firefighters to safeguard our lives and our homes.
Are there expected to be any more evacuations today?
We're going to do some sidebar on that. We'll do one-on-one interviews. We're going to move on. It is pretty hot out in the sun here, and I think it'll be beneficial to everybody to end this stage presence right now, and then we'll go into one-on-ones. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.